Gary Vee ruined the internet. So basically in 2018, Gary Vee, who is a social media guru, started telling everyone the importance of posting on social media. This was a time where there were still a lot of businesses and people who weren't on social media. They didn't know how it worked or how powerful it was. And Gary Vee was kind of this default voice to say like, hey, this is what social media is. This is how you capitalize on it. And his premise was post, post, post. And at the same time, I had also been producing content, and I wrote a book called Resonate for anyone who wants to build an audience. And it was based off of my experience of growing and building an audience and cultural movement on Instagram called Boss Babe, which got tied into the girl boss era and aesthetic. But it was originally started through my brand, Boss Babe, and Millennial Pink took over the internet and kind of pop culture for that moment. And so I wrote a book about how and why I think that happened, and it was deeply rooted in how to connect with people on an emotional level and on an identity level. And the book is available. This is not to just promote my book. It's also to say that at the same time, there was another kind of conflicting philosophy that got more traction at that time through Gary Vee. And his premise was, you need to be posting multiple times a day. That idea originated from him, and that is how he saw his success. He saw it from quantity of posting. And he really started to introduce this idea that it really doesn't need to be about quality. You just need to post, post, post. Now, what we need to understand is that the algorithm was at a different place. It was performing differently, and there was less media. And so that strategy was working. So what happened is a bunch of other tech and internet kind of bros, not tech bros, internet gurus. Difference. We could talk about that another time. Internet gurus started to take that very bro-y premise and kind of just rinse and repeat, and we get this echo chamber. And I think that what people underestimate about the internet is how quickly there can be a network effect where one person can start something and then, 3 people copy, and then 6 people copy those 3 people, and it happens so exponentially fast. And I've seen it happen in my own life with my own brand, and I saw it happen with his brand. So the reason why I think he ruined the internet, and I'll say this to his face, no disrespect, we can have a civil conversation about it, is, and it's funny because now his content is about how it's not about, followers anymore and all this stuff. And what I find so interesting about that is part of why your followers don't matter as much as they used to is because when we started pumping and dumping all this content as per his instruction, this was the same time that social media companies were waking up to the value of the media that we were creating and saying, hey, you know what, this is actually, we can reorganize this whole thing in a way where we have even more power over our platform and the way we are able to sell ads. And we don't really have to structure this around social interactions and social relationships. We can really start to structure this to be about creating algorithms based off of interest as opposed to your friends, right? So remember, you know what I'm talking about? This was the era where that switch started to happen. So, and the reason why they were able to do that is because we just started posting so much. Now it was like people had already wanted to become internet famous, but now there was this kind of blueprint and like default plan on how to do that, and it was post, 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 and that is still the antiquated paradigm and ideology that's happening now. And so you have young people who are just like, okay, I'm just gonna post, 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 and it's gonna give me a level of fame and financial security that I'm seeking. At least that's what people think, right? So now we're in a place where the expectation, because the algorithm has shifted because of that ideology and that philosophy of post, 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 now the algorithm has shifted so people feel like they have to be content machines. Now, in 2018, I had so much content about how you shouldn't be a content machine, how that's going to backfire, how that doesn't necessarily connect with people. I was telling people to focus on quality. Unfortunately, because the algorithm has changed, I'm no longer recommending that, because quality is not how you rise to the top anymore. If you notice, what rises to the top is usually underproduced, sensationalized clickbait content. That is what is winning right now in the algorithms, because that is the most exploitative to our eyes, and we give it the most attention, and it sells the most ads, which is the primary revenue model of these companies. I have, done a documentary called Attention for Sale on YouTube, where you can hear all about what I feel about the attention economy and what it does and how it threatens art, intellectualism, and human relationships. But I just came on here to say, Gary Vee, you fucked up the internet, man. I'm sorry. I'm actually not sorry. I would love to have a conversation about it, because I hope that, I don't think he did it on purpose. And I'm not blaming him alone, because it was an ideology that had a network effect, and ultimately it was all of us, and it was all of us enacting a very typical behavior that is rooted in blind technophilia. Blind technophilia is a term I've been throwing around for over 5 years, and it's basically blindly adopting and obsessing about tech and doing it in a short-sighted way, where it's like, yeah, sure, in 2018 post a bunch of content for the sake of posting content, but how is that going to age, right? How is that type of behavior going to age over time? Because now you have artists complaining left and right, and creatives, not just artists, creatives, business people. We never signed up to be content creators. We never signed up to pump and dump content. This is not what we wanted to do, but now this is the internet we've built. So I think this deserves to have a bigger and deeper discussion. I'm excited to see and help build 3.0 internet and beyond, because it is just is capable and powerful and can do so many more healthy things besides what we're doing now. But yeah,